to my channel. You're in BookTube, and today we have a very exciting video. I've got two things to get done. One is answer a bunch of questions that y'all submitted a few days ago on my last video. I just hit the 200 subscriber mark and I wanted to celebrate it. So I've got lots of fun questions from you guys to answer, but first I'm going to go into a little bit of detail about a project I have for March. So I wanted to get co-hosts for this, but it wasn't moving fast enough. So if you want to be a co-host, then I guess that just means do a buddy read with one of these books and, chat about it or make suggestions. Feel free to comment on this video, and I'll include you in all the videos that I do in March. So, what is it? What's the topic? March of the Moderns is the name, and basically that was the closest I could come to any sort of moniker that would apply to 1901, where Victober leaves off, to 1945, where we start getting postmodern and other issues start cropping up. So, this is a delicious time period for British writers, certainly. It's the golden age of mystery. It's a lot of interesting women's fiction. There's lots to mine there, but I also want to make it bigger and more multicultural, more international, because there was, of course, a lot going on in the world. From my American vantage point, I can see that there's women's suffrage movement and gender roles changing. There's the Harlem Renaissance, and there's some underheard voices from that time period. Well, let me just look at my notes here. I would love to help to highlight marginalized voices from that period, like women, BIPOC, LGBTQ+, and international, because we're so American and white male Christian centered. So let's do that. Why am I doing this to myself? I want to read more books from this era myself. It's sort of a weird gap of classics I read at school and whole swaths of writing movements that I don't know or I'm not familiar with. So part of this is for me. Part of this is do I want to write a book set in this period? Which decade is the favorite? That sort of thing. There's obviously echoes of the change that happened in the 1890s, the 1900 period, which is reaction against the Gilded Age and the pushback against mass industrialization and what that does to society, and I find that very interesting. So who am I talking about? What names of authors might you have on your bookshelves and not know and want to read for this March readathon? I'm so glad you asked. Let's see. E.M. Forster, W.S. Mom, Edith Wharton, yes, Graham Greene, E.F. Benson, Mary Webb, Vida Sackville-West, who I haven't read any of, so that's going to get solved. Virginia Woolf, J.M. Singh, who's a playwright from Ireland, Elizabeth Bowen, Elizabeth Gouge, I think that's how you pronounce it, Edna Ferber, and these are, okay, and so what I started with here, this crop, next crop, is mainly from the Persephone catalog, which is forgotten women writers, and typically 19th century, early 20th. So I had to sort of pick and choose because they didn't have them organized according to date. And these are the ones I found. Julia Strachey, Catherine Mansfield, a lot of fans of Catherine Mansfield. Lettice Cooper, which is a great name, Lettice. Dorothy Whipple, who has tons of fans over Persephone. Sylvia Townsend Warner, Stella Martin Curry, Winifred Holtby. Winifred is a popular name in this period, and it's also my grandmother's name, so that's kind of cool. Amber Reeves, Winifred Peck, Vera Hodgson, E.M. Delafield, Constance Maud, Cicely Hamilton, Edith Ayrton Zangwill. Yes, all sorts of names, and there's a lot more. I will trickle some out on Twitter as well, and please comment with authors who you love from this period, 1901 to 1945. That's my modern period. And we're going to have a bingo board. We're going to have a giveaway. And yeah, hopefully just get people excited. It's a long time after Victober, but this is how long this idea has been cogitating. And I just want to have some fun with it. So hopefully people will join me. Tell us what to celebrate about this time period's writers. Along with showcasing voices that we haven't heard before. I'm hoping to have a few special guests. I've reached out to some historians and some authors, and I'm hoping to get 2 or 3 of those people to drop in on my channel and entertain you all and educate us all about some of the issues that were happening in that period and how they showed up in literature, because that would be so exciting. Hopefully that sounds good, and like I said, put the names of authors that you want to try, that you found on your shelf, that you're all giddy to read now that this has been brought to your attention. And yeah, I will get that bingo board started. Well, I have it. I guess I can put it out so people can prepare. I'll do that in the next post as a side thing, so it'll like keep the momentum going. Okay, so on to the next big deal. 200 subscribers! Woohoo! All right, so here are the questions that I got. So I'm not going to put them up on the screen because I didn't screen cap them all and do all that nonsense. I put them in a really cool little thing here. And just like a side pocket of frustration, I'm waiting for a planner. I told Sandy Golston about this. I'm waiting for a planner. It's been a week since I ordered it, and it said in stock, ships in 2 to 3 days. And it's been a week, and they just sent me a notification that they shipped it. So I've been like counting on like getting it in the mail any day now, and no. And so I've got page spreads that are drafted, and I've got stickers that I want to put on this, and I like, you know, have very little left. I have like 6 pages left, so I really need this frickin' planner, okay? All right. So, back to questions. So, from Katja Weinert, step into a book verse for a vacation. Which book would you choose and why? Okay, so my questions are over here and my answers are over here because that's how we do it when we're doing last pages in a planner. I had a couple different answers to this. I said Sunshine by Robin Hobb? Robin something. It's so interesting because it puts someone with an attitude who works at a bakery up next to like magic and vampires and supernatural and just like squishes them together like a cinnamon roll, and it totally works. So I'd love to taste her baking and like fly through the earth like they do. That sounds cool. 20 Years at Hull House would be another choice because that's like the perfect time period to do research, so I'd love to see and smell and feel like what was going on in the streets of Chicago outside Hull House when Jane Addams was writing about these years. And then the third choice was The Old Ways by Robert Macfarlane. That's a favorite book, and it's all about the paths that people have trod for thousands of years and the history of those paths and why people use them and their cultures, and like, oh, can I go on a walking tour with him? That'd be awesome. That would be my definite #1 vacation pick. Katja also asked about favorite color, and not like you could tell from my background, but it's green. Next question is from Jackie Reads and Writes. What books inspired you to love reading? I've got a few for this one as well because I can't answer with just one. The Dream of the Stone by Christina Askunis was a fantasy for teens. Dragon Prince by Melanie Ron is epic love story and epic high fantasy dragons speaking on sunlight. Very, very cool world. And Jane Eyre, because I think what was really inspiring about Jane Eyre was the feeling of breaking free of something that is tempting and doing the right thing and then being rewarded for it, and in such a gothic romancy way, like that appealed to 15-year-old me. The next question is from Kim, Native Lady Book Warrior. What are the books I love that are 1, inspiring, 2, heartwarming, and 3, ominous? So I picked one for each word. Inspiring book would be Wishcraft by Barbara Sher, who recently passed away. I read this first like right after college when I was working at AmeriCorps, recommended by a friend, and this is probably like the 3rd copy I've had. And yeah, go after what you want. What is heart-wrenching? Okay, so I had to pick Daughter of Smoke and Bone by local author Laini Taylor for this. It's a Romeo and Juliet type story, but with very cool world building and details and twists and really great scenes. So she's a master of the angsty. And then ominous, I mean, yeah, can you get any more ominous than Dark Money? This is something I read last year and got me real fired up because it was like presaging all the terrible, terrible things that happened after 2016 and why they happened, and pointing at but not giving really direct solutions to what we can do to change them. So, yeah, meh. Okay, next question from very literary Carrie is, do I read in silence or with music? And I added that, do I write in either of those? So I do read in silence because, not that I need it to be silent to read, but that it's sort of a rest for the mind. When I write, I do listen to music because I need it usually to mask the noise to concentrate, because writing does take more concentration than reading for me. And I usually go to Pandora. There's a writing radio station. There's a Dreamy Snow Day radio station. And Elephant Revival is a great seed for a station that I used to write with, which is great. So thank you, Carrie. All right, next question is from Jim Holroyd. He had a whole barrage of questions, like a barrage balloons of questions. Number one, guilty pleasure book. That would be Lord Wyndham's Legacy, which is like a stereotype of a Regency romance that I read when I was like 19, and it was so new to me that I thought this was great, and every time I read it, it just makes me laugh. So yeah, I don't get guilty about that kind of stuff anymore, but that would qualify for that category. If I had to eke out a living, would it be on Nova Scotia or Mull? And I would have to say Mull, because I don't think they get seaweed on Nova Scotia's shores, and that seems like something that I would want to harvest and use for the fields. So yeah, I would definitely live on Mull. What is my preferred genre? And of course, it's historical fiction. And what's happening in the U.S.? Good question. My answer to that is chickens are coming home to roost, and that's pretty simple. Like I said with this, like you take 40 years, 50 years to put the wrong people in charge and mask their real intentions and allow them to just flood the system and hoard power in ways that the ordinary voter can't see, and this is what you get. I would recommend reading Beautiful Country, Burn Again to get an understanding of what's happening in the U.S. right now. It's by Ben Fountain, and I really wish he had a more recent version, like an updated version, because it's a book about sort of the cycles of American politics and history and how we deal with the different social pressures in different ways. And basically there's like a big combustion every 80 years, and like we're due for one, and we need to get it over with so that we can make new changes and start over, basically. Stuff he talked about I'd never heard of. He just went into a lot of detail about things that I'd never wondered about, like traveling salesmen in the 1880s and how that related to elections and mass media, and like really, really cool stuff. So it was a really long listen. I think I spent like a month or more walking back and forth to work listening to it, but it's really good. All right, and Jim's final question is, what do I wish I knew before BookTube? And, you know, I wish I'd started earlier. That's all I can say, because it seems to be what I really want in terms of connecting with an audience and being a little theatrical and performing, but also connecting with people and discussing things a little bit and forcing me to think things through in a way that you don't really get after school ends. So there's a lot of things to love about BookTube, and I should have started sooner. Allison's question, which was, she had 3. What music are you dancing to lately? Because she knows that I dance to music as part of my like mental health and physical health routine. And so I jotted down some of the ones that I had thumbed up recently on Pandora. Ava Max, Haley Steinfeld, Ariana Grande, Saint Motel, Ingrid Michaelson, the Oh Hellos, ZZ Ward, and Bishop Briggs. So there's a little range of moods within those artists, but yeah, all good and all like rabble-rousing to try to like get out the restlessness or escape from the cramped writing pose or typing pose or surfing pose with the mouse. So yeah, it's good to get up and move around. Allison's second question was, quick, there's an idea. Where do you put it? How do you find it later? Good question. This gets at organization, which I think I'm going to do a video on later about a writer's organization. But for this one, I just called it the idea fridge. Basically, if I get an idea and I'm not near a pad of paper, I'll loop the things that are identifying. So, like, I was out on a walk yesterday, and I was thinking about a funny idea, and I thought maybe I'll do a short story, even though I never write short stories. I don't really get them. But I thought, okay, I could have the two characters, Marcia and Marshawn, and, like, there would be this whole, like, thought experiment that I could do. And so I just kept those characters' names in my head until I got home, and then I was like, well, I remember the idea, but I don't want to do it. But I do the same thing with dreams when I'm trying to remember dreams and I'm just in bed, like in that half asleep phase. I go over the same details over and over again to try to remember them so that when I wake up I go, oh, yes, kitchen and kettle and CT, and like that will at least jumpstart whatever else was in that dream sequence. So her third question was, if I was told how much of my book life would be happening on YouTube last year, would I believe it? And yes, so this is sort of going back to Jim's question. I have felt blind in how I'm feeling my way towards the next thing for a while, and so knowing that, oh, YouTube is what I chose and what I went for, I'd believe it and I'd go, oh, thanks for the tip, future me, let's get on that train now. I really feel like this is my avenue, my lane, so I'm glad to be here. And I'm glad 200 of you think so too, because you find me entertaining or silly or, I don't know, funny to look at. We had one question sneak in late, and that was Tony from Book Text. She asked about my favorite tropes in historical fiction, and I don't really go by tropes. I hear people talk about, like, plot devices, and I think that tropes are bigger than that, so I resist actually naming a trope, and I don't have a better answer for this other than to say I like a lot of historical detail. I like a little romance. I like something that teaches me about the period that is true, that I don't have to doubt. Maybe it's saying too much about myself, but I do really like, I'm listening to now a contemporary romance called How to Fail at Flirting, and that's about someone trusting someone after a toxic relationship, and that caught my eye. Book Whimsy recommended that, so maybe that's something that I like, but it's not in the normal genre that I read. It's just an experiment. Life is just a series of experiments in books. Why not? All right. Well, that's it for today. This is going to be a long video, but we have our announcement for March of the Moderns. So thanks, everybody, and hopefully I'll get your comments below about authors you want to read for March, and if anyone wants to buddy read a book written between 1901 and 1945. Thank you, and see you soon.